Hey everybody! Thanks for joining last minute. Got a little impromptu webcast. I decided to do a fresh video for this one because this post previously had been a link to a series of articles that some of which the web addresses I don't use anymore, um, things of that nature, and also the articles themselves have been kind of redone so many times. Um, the maximizing your time in winter idea first came from the fall season, or whenever your fall season is, whenever your big race is over and you start, you take that block of time off and start to rebuild for the following year. So whenever that happens to be for you, some people are already doing it now. We're not even into August yet. So some people go, into the winter, deep into the winter before they take a big break. So whenever the fall is for you, um, and this basically has three parts to it. This started as one article, training article, and I turned it into three articles, and it has since become a very popular seminar that I do every year in the fall and winter months, usually, and it's kind of changed and adapted, and I have long versions and short versions, but it's become really popular. Here in Colorado last year, I was asked by some people, I approached some people about doing it, but I ended up doing 8 or 9 seminars in the course of a couple of months in the fall and early winter, um, on this. And so um, it basically starts. It has three basic pieces, which is uh, taking a break, how to do that, how to take time off, what's too much time, what's too little time, um, finding your weakness, which is the big part, how to go about finding your weakness, and then how to put this together into some actual winter training. And I'm not going to get into all that to all of this in this video. It would take way too long. Um, but uh, I will talk about a couple things. Is one, you definitely need that rest. You definitely have to have that. And we got a bunch of more people coming on here as I do this. So if you have questions, just you can put them in the chat or on the Facebook page, or you can email me or whatever. People seem to want to email me mostly. Um, you need to take that break. Then the finding your weakness part. That's kind of the big aspect. That's one of the things that um, has kind of been my specialty in coaching and working with a lot of other athletes, is really finding what their weakness is and why it's that way, and then how to fix it. Um, and then two, how do we put this into winter training? So um, you need enough of a break so that you're going to almost feel out of shape. You should, when you start training again, it should feel foreign. Okay, that's how much of a break you need. Um, Finding your weakness. The thing that I always say about this, there's a big part of the seminar that I do, is I say is to ask why. You need to keep asking why. Um, and a classic example with road cyclists is, I'm not a good climber, or I'm not a good enough climber. I always get dropped on the hills. Well, why do you get dropped on the hills? Why? Is it because you are really a bad climber, quote unquote? Or is it because that there's not as much drafting, everyone goes as hard as they can on a hill, and you're not as strong as them in general and you get dropped? Why? Go back to the zones. So this previous post we had a post on each different training zone, each different physiological zone, and we also had the post just recently on separating your skills from your zones. Okay, this is a big part of the seminar. Um, is it your 5 minute power? Is it your 1 minute power? Is it your threshold power that is holding you back? What kind of climbs do you get dropped on all the time? Are you getting dropped in the climbs at the end of the race where everyone's getting dropped, quote unquote, except for the winner. If it was flat, would you win every time? Probably not. So keep asking yourself why. You know, what type of situation is this? Every hill isn't the same. So why are you getting dropped in the hills? Is it always at the end of the race? Do you do much, much better in the flat races than at the end of the race? Type of hills, which is going to be threshold power and endurance. If there's a short hill and a crit, I do really well. I usually do better in those races. Well, that means, yeah, you've got good max power. You've got good 5-minute power, 1-minute power probably. You've got great anaerobic endurance. So ask those questions. Ask why. I can't wrap up how to find your weakness in a nutshell, unfortunately. But it's keep asking why. It's often not as plain and simple as we think. With triathletes, we always hear like, "Oh, my run. You know, my run is weak. It's not strong enough." Blah blah blah. Well, first of all, the run is the end of the race, so it should be really hard. Two, it's running. It's hard work. It's really really hard work. You can't just coast. You can't relax. So you know, realize that. The other thing is, you know, your cycling directly affects how well you do and how you feel on the run in a triathlon. And so, you know, 9 times out of 10, I hear these people that think that their running needs more work and they need to run more, and it's not. It's actually their bike. They're not executing the bike correctly. They're not strong enough on the bike to ride as aggressively as they are, and they pay for it on the run. So if it does come to, you know, if it is the case where your run is the weakest part of the 3 sports, why is it the weakest? Do you need more running volume? Do you need more high intensity running work? Are your mechanics bad? Your technique bad? All of those things. So keep asking why. And then we have the whole section on how to put this into actual training that you can use in the wintertime. So the biggest conundrum that people face all the time is I'm supposed to do, people say base training in the winter, so a lot of you that know me know that I hate that word. Base means a time of your periodization, not a type of training. So endurance training, right? We want to train endurance. There's a big post on endurance here in the 30 Days to Better Cycling page on the blog. So we want to train endurance in the early part of our periodization. And I kind of describe some ways to go about that and some better ways to train endurance. And then how do we add our weaknesses into this? And so the 1 workout 2 effects post is a good one. Okay, you can train your weakness and still be training endurance. You can do specific intervals on the bike to train your max power, to train your neuromuscular power while you're still riding. So you can go and do an hour ride or 90-minute ride and you're doing strength work on the bike. You're training your max power, but you're riding, so you're getting this residual endurance training. Every time you get in your bike and go ride, you're doing endurance training. If you're riding your bike, there are better ways to get endurance than others. Riding steady and long and every day, very consistently, that's good endurance training. Pedaling very, very easy and then doing strength intervals, you're not going to get as much endurance adaptation there, but you're still going to get some. So the 1 workout 2 effects, you can kind of read that and kind of adapt that for you. The last thing I want to talk about here is a lot of people, when they think about training and wanting to prepare for an event or their big race or their next season, all we think about is, I'm going to do this really hard training, and the harder I can train and the more of it I do, the better result I'll get. True. And then more advanced people, and hopefully some coaches, although not all coaches even get this far, is what type of training am I going to do? How am I going to use the time that I have to train better than the next guy? I'm going to do the group ride every week. That's going to be my secret weapon. I'm going to do, hill intervals. I'm going to do long tempo rides, whatever. Um, that's where the weakness training should come into play. Another thing that I think about in the wintertime, though, is the opposite of what most people think. A lot of people think that they don't understand that each piece of training, let's see if I can do this. Each bit of training that you do gives you some kind of adaptation, the benefit of that training day, of that training exercise. What people don't think about is what it costs them. How much time did that workout take you to do? How much time did that workout take? How much fatigue did that workout generate? Those are the things that you pay for that workout with. So one of the things that, especially with a power meter, it becomes very, very it becomes a lot more easy to do this, and you can do, or it becomes more effective to do this. Is in the past I've thought about how much little fatigue can we get out of a workout first, and then what's the minimal training to do? What's that minimal amount of training that we do to get an effect? Or, people might think of this as maintenance training. How little training can I do to maintain my fitness, but not necessarily thinking about, how can we make the least amount of fatigue? And this is going to come in the way you structure workouts and actual individual workouts, and it's going to come in the way you structure your week or month. So that's an interesting thing. And with a power meter, you can really dial that kind of stuff in, because you can do I call non-maximal workouts. It's very easy for you to do a workout, a VO2 workout, and do these intervals right at your VO2, but you don't need to do 15 or 18 minutes worth of intervals. You can do 6 minutes of total interval time, or 8. And there might be some people saying, well, only 6 minutes of interval time isn't gonna get you anything. Well, tell me what will. I'm open to discussion here. I can tell you that a couple years ago, when I really started thinking about this, I had 4 or 5 road cyclists that, I asked. I said, "You want to do a little experiment for this first few months of the fall and winter?" And they agreed to it. And I had all of them training at 50% or less of their normal training volume, not high training volume, their normal training volume. And all but one of them actually increased. When they started training, they were actually stronger than they were the year before. So at less than half of training volume, and less workload too. It wasn't just all crazy intensity. Less workload, less than half of workload. They actually increased their performance. I actually had people increase threshold power, increase their 5-minute power, their VO2 power, on much less training. Much less training. Small gains. And of course we had some very motivated people that came into the next season. No injuries, and as a result, the seasons themselves were long and very successful. Very successful. Multiple wins, upgrades, uh, you name it. So when it comes to winter training, try thinking of it that way. I'm going to leave you here since we're already at 15 minutes. Um, try thinking of, how little fatigue can I get with this workout? I'm going to get in the trainer for an hour and watch the football game or my favorite TV show, or I'm going to get outside because it's actually kind of nice today, but it's going to get dark soon, which is the biggest thing in winter I find is the darkness, not necessarily the cold. And what can I do with my hour to give me the most bang for my buck, but also think about, what's the minimal amount of work I can do to get an adaptation in this zone? What's the least amount of threshold intervals that I can do to get some kind of adaptation and have the least amount of fatigue possible? Seems counterproductive, but there's two sides to that training. There's what you get out of that training session, and there's whatever it costs you. Less cost, more consistency. Consistency is the bottom part, that bottom foundation block to the EK Endurance Coaching Training Pyramid that only clients have seen so far. So check out the tools on the EK Endurance Coaching website, ekendurancecoaching.com, and I'll put it up here. There'll be some helpful tools there for pace charts and power zones. I think I mentioned it before. Triathletes, if you want to find out your weakness, there's a threshold. It's for long course athletes, for half and full distance triathlon athletes that are, and it's based on your threshold power and or pace. For pace for the swim and the bike, power. It's based on your threshold, your lactate threshold for each sport, and it'll show you which one is weaker compared to your other abilities, compared to you. Not necessarily what triathletes should be at. So thanks for stopping in. Not a ton of viewers, but more than I thought for just throwing this up on Facebook and saying, hey, come join me. I'm going to put this up on YouTube, so feel free to share with your friends. And it will be on the blog as well. And I'll try to find those articles. I'll try and get the articles up that I have. They're old, so give me a break, okay? They're like 2008. So have a good one, everybody. Have a safe weekend, and we'll see you again soon.